Okay, chess fans, in my progression to 1800chess.com Rapid, here are 8 questions that I continue to ask myself about the openings that I play, and you should definitely ask about the openings that you play. Question number 1 is there low-hanging fruit? This is an English expression for saying, are there quick wins? So have a look at the screen right now. We have the Jabova London system on the board, characterized by knight to c3, followed by bishop f4, distinct from the normal London system where we play bishop f4 earlier. And so in this position, if we go into the Lichess database, you'll see that this position has been reached 11.8 million times. And have a look at the second most popular move. 2.2 million games went with knight to c6. And after knight to c6, black is already busted. You've got to understand that sub 1800 chess on chess.com, sub 2000 chess on Lichess, let's say, basic tactics, basic blunders. People will do stuff like this. Knight to c6, and after knight to b5, black is already busted. This is low-hanging fruit. There is a double attack on the c7 pawn. And what is black going to do? They have to throw in this horrible move e5. We have bishop takes e5, knight takes e5, d takes e5. They don't want to play something like knight to d7, hang this pawn. The only good move in this position is a6. Nobody finds it, and they move forward. And now you guys, taking a break from analyzing Gukesh, Dingley Ren World Championship games with the engine off, of course, are shouting at the screen, oh, this is so rookie, so amateurish, so easy to win from here. I know, guys. We've got to build suspense, though, on this YouTube channel. Queen takes d5. Black's a goner. Because after queen takes d5, we have knight c7 check. The king shuffles up. You win the queen back. And if you count the material, black is 3 pawns down. And your opponent's just looking at this guy. What the hell happened? Question number 2 is, does my opening save me clock time? Understand, many internet rapid games descend into blitz games where you're just playing quickly. There's no time for intense calculation. And so I have no settled opinion about, say, something like the King's Gambit. On the one hand, it gives you an active position. You've got a lot of chances at tactics. However, on the other hand, it leads to very unstable positions very quickly, and you're just going to spend a lot of time thinking. And say the King's Gambit is accepted, we have knight to f3, a whole bunch of stuff that black can do, g5 and knight f6. 10% of games go with bishop e7, for example, bishop c4. They throw in this check because you've been learning the lines. You play this move, king to fa. And I'm not saying that you can't make this work for you. After all, I'm only 1800 on chess.com. I'm not that good at chess. You can do whatever you like. But my concern with openings like this is, in moves 6, 7, 8, are you going to spend minutes thinking? I would rather play an opening where you get out of the blocks quickly, you put your opponent under pressure, because understand that so many games just end because one side gets into time trouble, they blunder, they throw away material, and they lose the game. It's that simple. Question number 3 is my opening more adventurous than the Caro-Kann? Question number 4 is, does my opening give me active pieces? Understand that a lot of low-rated chess is just getting your pieces out. They go into some combination, they win material, they win the game. And so I'm not saying you couldn't play something like the Stonewall Dutch, which is on the screen right now, characterized by putting your pawns on f5, e6, d5, c6 against anything white does except for e4, and that you couldn't become a great player. Of course, you're much better than me. If you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing. However, chess is hard, and there's an argument here that why would we make it harder? And so this Stonewall system has a massive problem, which is this light squared bishop. What is it going to do in this game? And you'll be like, oh, don't worry about that, light squares. You've been reading some book which has a contribution by a Norwegian grandmaster, and I'll say, is it by the Norwegian grandmaster? And you'll say no, and I'll say, well then. And in that book, which I didn't get on clearance, they talk about things like playing b6, bishop a6, put this bishop on a big diagonal, but you're making another pawn move. And they talk about procedures like bishop d7, bishop e8, bishop h5. You're spending time in a game. This is hard. It's hard for elite players to perform procedures like this when white is doing stuff. And let's be real with each other, guys. This bishop is not going to be involved in any tactics anytime soon. Question number 5 is, can I handle the critical lines? It's one thing looking for low-hanging fruit, but we live in an era of stockfish, AIs, engines, memorization. Assume your opponent is going to come prepared, even low-rated players. And so if you play something like the Stafford Gambit, good for you. But you got to go beyond memorization. e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6. They take in the center. We have knight c6, Stafford Gambit on the board. They take. We have d takes c6. And yeah, you can hope. You can hope they're going to fall for one of the traps. So they play something like d3, bishop c5. They throw in bishop g5. They lost because of knight takes e4. They take the queen, and you're like, ha ha, happy days. Bishop takes f2. The king shuffles up, and bishop g4 is mate. Huh? But what if they don't? What if they don't? What if they throw in some critical response like e5? This is a line, completely legitimate. And you'll be like, oh no, I'm prepared. I'm prepared. Because you're going to play knight to e4. And they're going to cement the structure in the center. And then you can play queen h4. And you're like, if they play g3, I'm going to play knight takes g3. And they lost. They lost. They can't take. The rook's hanging. If they do this, then I'm going to deliver this check. They lost. But just understand, guys. Let's be real with each other. Let's open up the Lichess database again. And understand, this position has been reached 100,000 times. And sure, g3, 1 in 5 games. But look at this stuff. Queen f3. Bishop e3, queen e2. White is defending pretty well. Low-rated players are defending pretty well. And look at the win rates. 60%, over 60% for white in those moves. I would say black is getting crushed. Why? Because people are selecting openings and they don't necessarily learn how to handle the critical lines. Question number 6 is, can I handle the positional weaknesses? And so picking on the Dutch again, this time the classical Dutch, characterized by pawns on f5, e6, d6. You can obviously play this opening, become a great player, much better than me. I have to repeat this. However, be mindful of this weak backward pawn here on e6. Your opponent in the future is going to play moves like queen b3, bishop c4. If you castle short, you may have to play moves like king h8 because you want to move your king out of this diagonal. And that means that the king is one square away from the center, which could be crucial in endgame. Yeah, you can win this game by trying to play moves like e5, but understand, it is fundamentally a weakness. Question number 7 is, can I give up material for the initiative? And so something lower rated players don't really understand that well, including myself. This is hard. Is that we can give up a pawn, 2 pawns, an entire exchange to get a dangerous attack going. And so this is the most beautiful example of this in all of chess, in my opinion, of course. And so we have e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6. And they've been Googling some stuff, so they jump here with the knight attack, knight g5, g5, they take, and now we don't want to enter fried liver stuff. So we put our knight on the rim. It's grim, but it's going to win. And we have bishop b5, c6, takes. Their bishop's hanging, and they play a move like queen f3. And in this position, they're like, oh, you can't take my bishop because I'm going to take your rook. I've shown this example many times on my channel, but that's exactly what you can do. You can take. Just take. And we have here queen takes rook, bishop e7, and we have very fast development, an open board with the bishop pair. And in this position, low-rated players are greedy, guys. They're going to take this pawn. Queen takes a7. They're lost. They're busted. Check this all with the engine. Knight to c6. The queen is running out of squares, and so they try to eject it out of there. That's quite a natural move. Get it out of danger. But after knight to d4, the c2 pawn is hanging. Their rook is hanging. And so they try to protect against that. Another queen move. And we have bishop f5. And white is completely busted. Question number 8 is my opening watertight? If I could go back in time, I would not play strange openings. I would just play something boring and rock solid. Something like the Queen's Gambit decline. What I do is play things like b6 against everything, which is a lot of fun. However, let's be real. It's not sealed. It's not watertight. It's a minefield. And so if you play something like the Queen's Gambit decline, d4, d5, c4, decline it with e6. People say don't do it because it's too theoretical. However, you can just throw in some offbeat sideline and understand it really well. So after knight to c3, knight to f6, bishop g5, just throw in this move, knight on b to d7. You're completely solid. And this is extremely dangerous for white. 1800s and below on chess.com, definitely 12, 13, 14, 1500s are going to start taking in the center. We have c takes d5, e takes d5, and now knight takes d5. They lost because that's just a free piece. Knight takes d5. If they take your queen, we can win the queen back. Bishop b4 checked. Only one way to block it is queen d2. You can even delay the capture of this queen by playing king takes d8. And you're just up a piece. And you'll be like, oh, but in the Stafford Gambit, you can give up a queen. Yeah, you can. But deep down inside, we all know that that's losing and it's unstable. The Queen's Gambit decline, on the other hand, is completely solid and very dangerous. That's it. Bye.